Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a very special guest. His name is Steve Outtrim. He comes to us from down under. He's in New Zealand, and he is the proprietor of the website burners.me. He has a long history in Silicon Valley and was really there at the very beginning of the internet age. Started a company very early and retells that on his website. There's a lot of information there, but also his association with Burning Man, which this year they had to kind of do an impromptu one at the beach in San Francisco, is my understanding. We can talk about that as well. That's the reason for the title for his website is burners.me. That's what it's referencing. But on tonight's show, we're going to talk about something I've been following on his website. I've read most of the stuff, but it's the topic or subject of LARPing, live action role players, and he's done a lot of research and has actually been involved in some of these lawsuits that are taking place between people in what would be considered the alternate media, maybe. And I kind of came up. If you ever writes like a autobiography, you can title it "Adventures in the Alternate Community," because Steve has a lot of connections with maybe some figures you might not know, but definitely a lot of interesting and very detailed information on his website. So I should suggest my listeners go check that out. So he knows a lot more about it. He also has a podcast which is titled Crypto Beast, and does a lot of different really interesting kind of personal investigations. I think he's become pretty much a full-time researcher. So Steve, are you there?
Hey, William. Yeah, I'm here. Thanks for the introduction.
Awesome. Well, thank you for agreeing to the interview. So finally made it happen. I know I tried to wrangle you a couple months ago, but for people who have not heard your name, maybe you can talk a little bit more, add to what I added in the intro, and just tell how you got to this point of where you started researching these very interesting individuals who are all in litigation with each other.
Sure. So I started off on the internet pretty early in 1995, and I wrote a software program called Hot Dog, which made it easy for people to create web pages. And in 1997, that was named as the number 3 most downloaded software on the internet. So I took that company public at a very young age. I was able to retire at 26 when I sold it for $700 million after just 5 years of short life. You know, I was broke when I began that business, so I didn't get all of that money. I only held a small percentage of the company at the time of the sale, but I still did really well out of the first dot-com wave, and then I became an investor in year 2000 and worked probably with about 50 early-stage companies, angel and Series A investing, sat on boards of directors, mentored a bunch of businesses. Right now I work for a top 100 university as an entrepreneur in residence, helping people start their businesses and stuff like that. But I got into research really as a hobby. I'm a student of history, and I think anybody who studies history realizes that it's a story of conspiracies. It's one conspiracy after another. So the idea that conspiracy theories don't exist is silly if you study history, because that's all that it is. And thanks to the internet, there's really incredible research there. I've studied Aleister Crowley very deeply, not as deeply as yourself. You're probably the world expert on that topic, but I'm very intrigued by his role as an intelligence agent as well as an occultist. And there's this sort of overlap between the worlds of the occult, secret societies, and magic, and the activities of intelligence agencies and organized crime. And no this intersection there is really pervasive throughout society. I mean, the underworld exists. There is an underworld, and it's silly to pretend that it doesn't exist. And so my interest in Burning Man kind of came out of the rave scene and just going out to party in the desert, have a good time away from anyone that's going to give you any hassles. That's how it was presented to me when I first went in 1998. And for anyone who's not listening, or not familiar with it, who's listening, is Burning Man is this event in the desert where they create a massive statue, like a wicker man, 50 or 60 feet high, and they set fire to it in a huge bonfire. And then, people dance around it and everything. It's turned into a week-long kind of anything goes party and become quite famous. But it's enormously influential on Silicon Valley. And so a lot of my research into Burning Man which you can see on YouTube in my series Silicon Valley Secret Weapon, The Shadow History of Burners, which I did with Jan Irvin from Gnostic Media. It's 7 parts, technically 7.5 parts, and it's almost 24 hours of content, but it represents about what was 4 years of almost full-time research into the ties between Silicon Valley, Stanford University, the Stanford Research Institute, the Grateful Dead, the Esalen Institute, Burning Man, Timothy Leary, all of the activities going on at Harvard and other MK Ultra universities. That stuff sort of never stopped from the 60s. It's still going on today, and companies like Google say that they kind of owe their existence to Burning Man. It's played a huge part in the culture of that company, and they used to have massive photographs from Burning Man, sitting around the lobby of Google, so that was the first message you got when you came into their headquarters.
Fascinating. That's amazing. So, that's the whole thing, is this kind of culture creation is still ongoing. And what led you kind of towards this whole subject of LARPing, this kind of unique situation within modern alternate media? Yeah,
well, so I grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Air Force, and he was in charge of logistics for the New Zealand Air Force. And so I was always interested in military strategy and tactics. And so when the internet came out, being involved with the internet from the very early days of the World Wide Web, I was interested in it from an information warfare perspective. And you might have heard of the term guerrilla marketing. That's a way that you can use tactics of warfare in a business environment. So I use asymmetrical warfare, information warfare tactics to build my brand, build my business. These days that's known as growth hacking. And I've maintained an interest in that field even after retiring for the first time in 2000. And what I've seen is an incredible evolution of this stuff from YouTube coming out, Facebook coming out, Twitter, and the use of these platforms for disseminating all kinds of information. It really has been weaponized. And we saw the Smith-Munt Modernization Act. I think it was signed in 2012, proposed 2011 under the Obama presidency, and that basically reversed a long-standing policy since World War II that psychological warfare can't be employed against the domestic population. So after that, all bets were off, and the military-grade information weaponry, these platforms of psychological warfare and psyops, have been deployed for almost 10 years now against the American people and against everyone in the world. And big tech and the social media platforms play a large role in that. But there's quite a clear evolution of this thinking and these technologies from the military world. And so in the 2016 election, memes played an enormous role. Memes on 4chan and Peppy the Frog and everything like that. And, I was participating in 4chan poll. I probably spread a few memes on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, at Steve Outtrim, SteveOuttrim. I'm pretty active on Twitter, and I don't make memes myself. I just retweet stuff that I find in the information stream. But the net effect of the alternative media and alternative world promoting memes and ideas and short videos and stuff like that in 2016 was that, everything was pointing towards Hillary Clinton winning, right? I mean, what an outsider Trump seemed at the time. And I've been a Donald Trump fan since I read his book, The Art of the Deal, and I've actually employed his thinking about business in my own business activities and had great success from that. So he's someone I've always looked up to as a businessman, and as a leader, he has an incredible command of the information platforms. So I knew that Trump would be able to dominate the news cycle and have them talking about nobody but him, which is indeed what happened. But in addition, there was this alternative digital army, the nascent digital army that we really saw come out of the 2016 election. If you could think, perhaps leading the charge was Kim.com in May 2015, giving an interview to Bloomberg and saying that Julian Assange is going to be Hillary Clinton's worst nightmare in the 2016 election. And, he said that he was in touch with Seth Rich and that he knows that Seth Rich was the source for WikiLeaks. Now, I don't have information to know if that's true or not, but that whole story there, Seth Rich, WikiLeaks, and then coming out of WikiLeaks, Pizzagate, this was new types of information warfare that we'd never seen before. And I was fascinated by everything that was going on, by the memes, by these crazy narratives coming out, conspiracy theory narratives starting to hit the mainstream. I mean, Alex Jones I've followed for many years, and he really came to the fore in 2016. I mean, I think he deserves a huge thank you from the American people and the world for the role that he played in getting President Trump elected. And so the InfoWars, which used to be fringe conspiracy theory, suddenly shifted much more so towards mainstream thinking leading up to the election. And then we had the Pizzagate. And after Pizzagate is really, that's when I got into the LARPers, because some of the characters that I started to follow on YouTube and in social media in relation to these stories, to me, it seemed like there was more going on, that these were just like some guy in his bedroom with a camera.
Right, there's some other agenda or something going on. I mean, I think that some of the names are familiar to me because I followed the Seth Rich case, and I do think that, like you referred to it on your website, this kind of new internet reality is a new battle space, really, and you have to really commend these guys, especially WikiLeaks, the slow rolling that information about the emails and all that, letting people go through it. It really captivated people before the 2016 election. But some of these names that I've followed that are on your website as well are like George Webb, Jason Goodman, and I remember their kind of Charleston port hoax that shut down the port of Charleston after they said there was going to be some kind of bomb there. But yeah, so there's a lot of interesting characters, a lot of infighting as well. So and it leads up to
that's sort of how I got started off with these LARPers. I think I was following George Webb. I have a group on Facebook where I discuss conspiracy theories and ancient wisdoms with a few people. And one of the people there said, "Hey, check out this guy George Webb and what he's saying." And it was around, I think, day 8, and he was, creating videos every day, short videos, 10, 15 minutes or so. He also pioneered the having a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes,
and then discussing that in his videos. He used to do that back in the day. He doesn't do that so much anymore. But I started watching this guy, and he was talking about DynCorp human trafficking, which was a story that was discussed in the Australian media at the time it happened, but I knew most of the people I talked to in the US weren't aware of that. And so that was an unusual thing I thought for him to be talking about, and he started talking about Hillary's henchmen and the Awan brothers story. And so I was a fan of George Webb's content, thinking that his story was legit. And then he met this guy Jason Goodman, and they did an interview filmed on the rooftop apartment of Jason Goodman in Chelsea in New York. And very quickly, not only did all of this stuff go off the rails, but the LARP started to intersect as well. And I think it was maybe, a month, maybe less than a month, from when Jason and George are doing this first interview on the rooftop and introducing this character Jason to George's narrative, to suddenly they're doing this live stream that you mentioned, and I was watching it live, where in a 3-hour video, they shut down the port of Charleston from a YouTube dirty bomb hoax, and they had it was a social media campaign, and there's an earlier video where you could see George and Jason actually planning the LARP, and they're sitting in a diner. They've got like salt shakers and things like that, and they're moving it around. And George is saying, "Oh, there's going to be the ship. It's going to be the Memphis, the masked Memphis," and he's moving it around with a salt shaker. And then on the day, they're like, "Oh, the ship is coming, this masked Memphis, and here's the software where we can track it. It's coming into the port of Charleston, and we believe that it has these 4 shipping containers on it that are protected because a diplomatic pouch can now be a shipping container that travels without any diplomats, and they can contain radioactive material, and they're not being scanned. And this guy from the Iwan brothers that's involved with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the spy ring on the Democrats in Congress, Pakistani brothers, he's the one bringing in these diplomatic containers, and they've got nuclear devices in them. And so the people watching the show called up the Coast Guard and said, hey, do you know that there's a nuclear bomb that's being brought into the Port of Charleston right now? And obviously, understandably, the Coast Guard took that extremely seriously. And they shut down the port. It was at the time the number 8 busiest port in the United States. And it was shut down for many hours while they unloaded these containers that supposedly George identified and scanned them for radiological material. And there was never any report of the radiological material. The ship left the port without incident. And then they created another LARP that was another masked vessel called the Anna. That was the actual one that had the dirty bomb on it, this nuclear material in a container. And that was coming in, and the masked Memphis and the Anna were going to connect together at sea, and they were going to exchange containers with each other in the middle of the night to get the dirty bomb back into the port. And I was just stunned, in awe, watching this happen. Like, these guys on YouTube making up this story actually shut down a port. I mean, it's a cyber attack. It's asymmetrical warfare. It's information warfare, but with very real world consequences. Right. And it's an attack on critical infrastructure, and it just shows how vulnerable our critical infrastructure is to this kind of thing being weaponized.
Yeah, it's really incredible, and I think that they had kind of accrued a substantial audience, and I think that Swigert, or Webb, or whatever his real name is, claimed that he had real inside information, and that's why he was coming out. I think he was doing the Seth Rich that really came to not know real proper end or any real new information, but he certainly led people on saying that was what was going to happen. He was going to reveal that stuff. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the Seth Rich case, the Iwan case, even the entire, like, Andrew McCabe and the FBI spy ring and stuff like that. Like, you can look at just about every major story that George Webb has attached himself to, or more recently, the coronavirus, where he was profiled by CNN. CNN featured him for shutting the port down with a conspiracy theory, and then featured him again for, trying to cause an international war with his conspiracy theory that a certain cyclist in the United States military at the military games in Wuhan was patient zero that delivered the coronavirus there. And it was just a completely made-up thing. Her last name was Benassi, which happens to be the name of an extremely famous Italian DJ. And so because of that, George Webb accused this famous DJ of involvement with a biological warfare plot.
I didn't know that. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, this poor woman was recovering from a brain injury that she had, in the cycling race, and had to deal with the international spotlight on her. And people are freaking out, obviously, about COVID-19 all around the world, and they were saying that this woman brought it into China to deliver it to China. I mean, this is like really quite a dangerous story that he was telling. But once again, he not only did he get away with it, but I think for a guy like George Webb, you could argue that being featured on CNN is actually a level of infamy that then, adds to his ability to sell books and monetize his LARP.
Right. Good point. Do you know, has he written books? Is Webb making content or media, books or videos? Yeah, I know he's making YouTube videos.
He got kicked off YouTube. If that, he's still making video content on other platforms, maybe Periscope, I don't know. But yeah, I think that's since losing his main platform there, that's how he's monetizing it, as he's copying this, another one in the crew of characters that get involved with these LARPs, Robert David Steele, who's a prolific publisher of books. And so Webb, I think, in the last year has punched out about 4 ebooks that are available on Amazon. I haven't read any of them, so I can't tell you if they're any good or not, or if he even writes them himself. Right? He's working with this guy Peter Duke, who's a photographer, and he's connected to many figures in the alt media. If you wanted to look around George Webb and see who could be the guy's handler, this guy seems to fit the bill very nicely. And, many of the other LARPers, you'll find him connected to them as well.
Interesting. So, Steele himself has an intel background. I mean, doesn't he? And he's kind of, it seems like he's tested the waters. He dropped some kind of alien base on Mars story, if I remember correctly. And has
he went on to InfoWars right at the time when Alex Jones was facing a lot of legal heat over that school that I don't know if it's a good idea to
Sandy
mention.
Hook.
Yeah, there you go. Right at that time, Steele did an interview on InfoWars, and he says that Pizzagate is real, and not only that, but the secret space program, they're actually trafficking kids to Mars so that they can be slaves when they arrive on Mars. And this was used to discredit Alex Jones. Like, look at the type of content Alex Jones puts on his show. But Alex wasn't endorsing it or saying that that's true or anything like that. And so I saw that as like quite a deliberate attack. That's if you think of information warfare, that you have a bomb, that's an info bomb, right? That you go onto a large platform like Alex's and say something that's easily discreditable misinformation. It's designed to make that platform look ridiculous, and so I kind of call that like a LARP suicide bomber. That they don't care if there's blowback on their own reputation from doing it. It's worth taking that on just to make the attack, and in many ways their prestige actually is enhanced from every attack like that they make that is successful and has an impact. I probably should define what I mean by LARPers for your audience, especially with my thick Australian accent. So it's LARP, live action role play, and the term kind of came out of Dungeons and Dragons and Renaissance Fair and people that wanted to dress up as his characters out of history and fight mock battles with each other and things like that. That's sort of the traditional understanding of what a LARP is, but it has been adapted in the last 3 or 4 years to refer to people who are playing characters on YouTube and other social media platforms. And some of the people that you'll see on YouTube are larger than life figures. They're almost cartoon-like. And you're sucked into thinking that this is just a whole bunch of people like you and I turning on our camera, getting on YouTube, making a video. We're our genuine self. Nothing more to see than what you see. But in fact, some of it is really quite carefully calculated with multi-channel networks. So channels that may appear to be having some kind of battle with each other or rivalry with their audiences, in fact, quite often turn out to be collaborating behind the scenes. And we've seen this kind of thing happening with the LARPers that I've been studying in particular, which have been around this Seth Rich, Awan Brothers, Pizzagate, and Russiagate, Spygate, and then there's one from Australia called Mategate, which intersects with Isaac Cappy. So to me, that cluster of stories, each with hashtags that I've just been through, has sort of defined the news and the preoccupations of the alt media since the 2016 election. Pizzagate hasn't gone away, and there's been all kinds of... First, they tried denials of the story, appeals to ridicule, all kinds of logical fallacies, and then they tried LARPing it up with, a guy called Big Fish and another YouTuber, Titus Frost. They put out a story that there had been a hack into Comet Ping Pong's website, and they found a secure private area with child porn on it, and that had been recorded and handed to the FBI and to the DC Capitol. And they played recordings confirming, as well as showing emails confirming that that stuff was handed to the cops, right? Not only were no arrests made, but the next day after their show talking about that, this guy, an actor called Edgar Madison Welch, walks into Comet Ping Pong. He fires a single shot, and it just so happens that this magic bullet took out the hard drive inside the computer server in the office of Comet Ping Pong. So he's this crazy terrorist, radicalized by the internet. Pizzagate turned him into someone who went and shot up a ping pong restaurant. But in fact, all he did was take out like the one piece of evidence related to the thing that had been handed to the FBI the night before. So I look for coincidences. I believe coincidences do exist in the world. But when you start to see coincidence piled upon coincidence, there's a threshold at which it's like, this seems like there's more going on here than meets the eye. And around the Pizzagate story, not only have there been so many of these coincidences, but there've also been these interconnections that have been exposed in the alternative media that are just starting to come to light in the mainstream world. But most of the mainstream media isn't even touching the Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell story. The stuff that is coming out is being very carefully controlled. But if you follow it on Twitter, you get the whole story, and it's mind-blowing what's coming out.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. When you say the connections of Pizzagate, what are you referencing? Are there some new research that's being unfolded, or is that Epstein's connection to Pizzagate?
For example, James Alefantis is involved in a gallery, the Transformer Art Gallery, with the Caffritz family. And the Caffritz family were also heavily involved in NXIVM, right? So that's a connection between Pizzagate and the NXIVM story. Now, you might think that because Alefantis was never charged with anything, he's completely, innocent of all crimes and allegations. And I guess technically that's true, but he's never given an explanation for the photographs of the babies, holding stacks of €100 notes and children taped to ping pong tables and all kinds of stuff like that. The story has been like, well, there's no basement in the restaurant, so how could that be true? But he had two restaurants very close to each other, another one Bucks Fishing and Camping, and he did media stories talking about the basement in that restaurant. So that to me is an indication of someone who's guilty, right?
Or something. Bucks is actually, Bucks is a well-known, among pedophile, it's a known, pedophile term, too. Did you know that? Like a buck?
Yeah, I mean, that's all of this stuff has come out from Pizzagate, and I think that this is a scourge on the planet. Like throughout history, the scourge has been there, and people have eliminated it, and it needs to be eliminated. But instead, the media, and it seems like the FBI and the cops are just covering all this stuff up. And then when you start looking into these LARPers on YouTube, many of them they seem to be investigating it, but a lot of them are actually discrediting the real investigators and attacking their character, trying to get their channels shut down. And I mean, to me, I'm pretty deep into studying all of this stuff, and I've worked out, who I think is a real researcher and who is, completely full of shit. And it's actually quite easy to spot that, because if all they do is attack other researchers, but never actually talk about their research or what's wrong with the actual research, well, that's a dead giveaway, and that's what you see. And in fact, there aren't so many people in the social media world who are backing up the statements that they make with documented primary source evidence. I mean, obviously, I'm talking to you because I have a lot of respect for all the research that you do. But is that something that you see yourself looking at this space, William?
Oh, yeah, there's all kinds of problems. I mean, one of the things that...
Have a great idea you'd like to unpack or a story you'd like to tell on a podcast? With Spreaker, you can record, host, and share your episodes with the world in seconds. And Spreaker is the only platform where you can start monetizing your podcast from day one. All you need to get started is a microphone or even a cell phone, and of course, a good idea. For 1 free month on a pro account, visit Spreaker.com/join today. That's SPREAKER/join today to sign up for free.
Where do you want the roofing business to take you? To a nicer house? To family vacations? A comfortable retirement? Wherever you're going, GAF contractor programs and products can help you get there. Visit GAF.com/get there.
I mean, for you, for example, to distinguish you from other researchers, you can actually go to your website and look at all your detailed, intensely detailed research and figure it out for yourself or read it for yourself. Some of these other guys do not do that. They're not using reference points. They're not putting things on the record so much. But yeah, there's all kinds of problems. And I think that it's just, you can go to this whole Seth Rich, this fake investigation by Webb. And we can get into even Epstein, even to this day, Rich and Epstein and all these guys. Like, even I've seen Goodman interview Dershowitz and not even ask him any important questions outside of some of these hearings. And Dershowitz is up to his neck with Epstein. And you can see these. They just exposed. This is another example. This guy Jacob Wohl was actually getting payments from Ghislaine Maxwell. So, and he was involved. Yeah, it's incredible. And this guy was involved in all kinds of shenanigans. They call him a right-wing person, but I think he's just, if you ask me, in my opinion, he's available for hire. He's just...
absolutely. Yeah. If you take money from Ghislaine Maxwell, you take money from anybody in the world, literally, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't get really much lower than that. And they were quite happy to do dirty work for her. But both Jacob Wohl and Jack Berkman,
right.
who he was involved in the Seth Rich case. He was putting on press conferences that Jason Goodman was attending way back then, and those guys were also working with Rod Wheeler, the detective that was on Fox News. That's ended up in multiple lawsuits involving Ed Butowski. He employed a whole bunch of people from the social media world, including Shadowbox Strategies, and they were discussing in the briefing to actually wiretap Seth Rich's family. And this came supposedly out of Butowski, shared the same rabbi as the family, felt bad for them and wanted to help. How do they go from, hey, I'm so sorry that your son died, I want to help, to I'm going to be in all of these lawsuits and I'm going to sue you for defamation? And
right.
I don't know. The story there was that Alan Ratner learned from Julian Assange that Seth Rich was the source, told that to Butowski, and then potentially he got it from Cy Hirsch. Now, Cy Hirsch, around the time that all this was happening, he was in frequent contact with George Webb, to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if George Webb was Cy Hirsch's source at the FBI, feeding information to him. But coming back to that Port of Charleston LARP, it turned out that the information they had from their source, Deep Uranium, who did multiple shows on Crowdsource the Truth, he was an FBI contract informant called Okie Marshall Richards. And so the FBI was actually involved in feeding this information to these YouTubers who then go and have a hashtag campaign and get a port shut down, get critical infrastructure attacked, and then they can say, oh, look at this cybersecurity weakness we have. The other thing that's very interesting there was that 2 weeks after this attack on the port with the Maersk shipping line, there was a virus that was traced to originating out of Ukraine that affected the Maersk shipping line and crippled it. It did far more damage than the port, like potentially above $100 million damage. And the virus infected other businesses around the world as well. So that's a very, very strange coincidence that the Maersk shipping line got hit basically with 2 advanced cyber attacks within weeks of each other in the same month. But then you look into the background of Jason Goodman and his connections to the Ukraine. Both Jason Goodman and George Webb have been seen on video speaking fluent Russian.
Really?
So what's going on there?
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah, just to go back, if you remember, there was this huge press conference involving Wohl and Jack Berkman. They had some special source on Seth Rich that led to nowhere. Do you remember that, where they had a call?
Yeah, well, I think that's right. And I think Matt Couch was involved in that press conference as well, and he was also in this meeting with Ed Butowski and Shadowbox Strategies. He apparently has 5 recordings related to the court case that the Seth Rich case that he's just been ordered by the court to hand over. He's been trying to refuse that to protect his sources. So it's going to be very interesting to hear what's revealed in those courses and those recordings. And I'm hoping that through these court cases, we can actually really get to the bottom of what's been going on with some of these LARPs, because so far what has been revealed from documents and subpoenas and everything is a lot of the stuff that I just had a hunch about in 2016 that I think these people are connected. Well, now we've got the emails between the people, we've got payments going back and forth between the people, we've got, them like openly plotting conspiracies together. And as far as I know, all of this stuff has been handed to the authorities, not by me, but a lot of people that have been sending information to me have also been saying that they've been sending it to the authorities, and yet it's still going on. And you kind of wonder what's going to be next. If they can shut down a port, if George Webb can kind of, try to create an international incident over coronavirus. Jason Goodman's on the streets of New York all the time, agitating the police, yelling at police. It's like he's trying to start incidents on the street. I mean, I've actually a few times tuned into his show and seen him involved in altercations while he's live streaming. I mean, I can understand that if you're going to do a lot of live streaming, and Manhattan can sometimes be a confrontational place, it might happen, once that you got into an altercation while you're in a live stream. But when it's like consistently, I don't watch the show that often, but most of the times when I tune in, when he's walking, that's he gets into an altercation. So is he actually, like they say, an agent provocateur, someone who's sent in to stir up trouble, and then the patsies who respond, the system is waiting to identify them and involve them and use them as examples of whatever agenda they're trying to achieve.
Right. And can you list out for the listener the court cases that you know of involving these LARPers? Because they're ongoing. They're still, even to this day. Correct?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. I mean, one of them is Field McConnell, and he was part of Able Danger with a guy called David Hawkins. They did about 20 shows with Jason Goodman on Crowdsource the Truth, and then Field and David kind of split up. Field got involved with this guy Timothy Holmseth, and he ended up in jail. He was in jail in Wisconsin and then extradited to Florida and in jail in Florida as well.
Right, for saying something online, right? Didn't he say something incendiary?
For harassing a woman, a female lawyer in Florida, who basically got a protective order against him, and then he violated the protective order. So, that's sort of what the stage that some of these LARP battles are at. In the realm of lawfare, or some say LOL suits, is they try to resolve these matters civilly, and that may result in a protective order from a judge. If that's violated, then it becomes a criminal matter, and they can actually get them locked up. So, this is going on in a strategic fashion, and many of the lawsuits are interlocking with different characters. But I guess an early one, maybe I don't know if it's the original one, but Robert David Steele sued Jason Goodman for basically in the days after the port shutdown. Jason and George had done a fundraiser, like a telethon type show, promoting Steele's campaign, #Unrig. And they raised about $25,000 from their audience for Steele, gave them the money, and then after these guys pulled this LARP and shut the port down, Steele said, "Look, my information is that Jason's about to be arrested by the NYPD, and I don't want to have anything to do with you guys anymore." And so Jason turned around and said, "Well, everyone that gave that money to Steele, call your credit card company, initiate a chargeback, try to get that money back. He's now the robber who steals," is what Goodman was calling him. And so that triggered a defamation suit. It was $24 million originally, which recently it was the Steele's lawyer sent a document to the court, which triggered the dismissal of the case on a technicality, and then 2 days later they refiled that case. So that's currently going on in the Alexandria court in the Eastern District of Virginia. George Webb's brother, he goes by the stage name of Dave Acton, he filed his own suit in South Carolina, where the Port of Charleston is located, and against Jason Goodman, again for defamation. And that case has evolved, he also filed a motion to intervene in the Robert David Steele case in Virginia. So that case was moved to the Southern District of New York, where Jason Goodman is now also being sued by the Emmys and NATAS, which is, I think, the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, that puts on the Emmys. So he made a Crony Awards where he took the Emmy statue and he put the coronavirus molecule inside the Emmy statue. And the Emmys gave him a copyright strike on YouTube for that. And he objected to the strike, which the only thing you can do in that circumstance, which I've been in with Jason myself when he stole copyrighted material from me, and I gave him a strike and he objected. So the only thing you can do is you have to actually move it to court at that point. You have to file a lawsuit within a certain number of days, or you'll just put the content back up. So in many ways, YouTube's policies are actually driving many of these things to come into the courts.
Interesting. So that's one, and then for some reason, Webb is suing Goodman too, right? So there's like all this.
So this is Webb's brother Dave suing Goodman. So that's the Southern District of New York, and the Emmys suing him in the Southern District of New York, and that's the same court as Epstein, Weinstein. I think some of the Nexium stuff's been going on there. Ghislaine Maxwell, Anthony Weiner. So, yeah, they're seeing a lot of activity. But interestingly, Goodman's case, where the port was shut down with, disinformation from an FBI informant in what looks like a agent provocateur situation, in my opinion, when it was moved from South Carolina, once those allegations were introduced into the case, it was assigned to New York to a judge who was the former special counsel of the FBI, appointed by Robert Mueller.
Wow, interesting.
So, and the other case against Jason Goodman was on the Emmys, has also been assigned to the same judge. So, if you want to look at a general channel on YouTube and say, is this legit, or is this maybe some kind of government or secret society LARP, have a look and see how many people on the channel are government agents or former.
Right, present or former, right?
And how many people on the channel are witches and sorcerers and stuff like that, and it gives you an idea of where it might be lying.
But this guy, but Goodman is also working or was associated with this character DeFango, right? Who has also just been causing all kinds of turbulence and consternation in that community. Wasn't he trying to go after Adam Green or No More News or some of these other people? And then I think there was something you wrote about how they were caught on live stream trying to kind of get their story.
Yeah, well, this guy DeFango is literally the biggest LARPer of them all. At the end of 2019, Titus Frost had a LARPer of the Year awards, and he used a round-robin format with his audience. We spent quite a while going through all the nominations, voting in different categories and that to get it down to the finalists. And from about 500 votes cast, DeFango came number 2, LARPer of the Year 2019. And the number 1 winner was Prince Andrew for saying that he didn't sweat back at the time of these nightclub allegations. So, this 2020 is, DeFango has been making a play for LARPer of the Year 2020, and he's had kind of an unexpected challenger come in the form of this guy, Austin Steinbart. But the thing in common with both of these LARPers, well, they're both out of Arizona. DeFango's in Nevada now, but they both claim to be QAnon, or DeFango claims to have invented QAnon. Steinbart claims to be QAnon and even be QAnon from the future using time-traveling technology to come back and talk to us, right? But he's just been arrested for impersonating a DIA officer and also for parole violations. He was told not to drink and not to smoke cannabis. He was filmed by undercover cameras while on home detention doing both of those things. So, I think that guy's in jail now. Field McConnell's in jail now. I believe Steinbart was connected to Timothy Homseth, but there was a LARP, I think back in 2017, involving Craig Sawyer and these rape trees.
Yes,
I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, I do.
So that was to do with child trafficking, and it was on a Cemex site near Tucson, Arizona, and a guy called Screwy Louie, Michael Arthur Lewis Meyer, I think was his full name. He seems to be another one of these FBI provocateur type characters who I think ended up in jail. But DeFango was on his way to join that LARP and supposedly left his wallet in a gas station, had to turn around and pick it up, and then by the time he got his wallet, he just decided to drive home instead. So he narrowly avoided being tied up in that backyard brawl LARP, even though it was very close to him in Arizona. But Austin Steinbart was there. So these guys both kind of crossed paths at this LARP, and then crossing paths again, pretending to be the creators of QAnon. And you've got to wonder, like, why would somebody do something that would, it's so likely to get them thrown into jail? Possibly it's just a mental illness that they just don't care or whatever, but possibly they think they are above the law because they've been promised immunity because of a deal that they've cut with a government agency.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's another guy who comes to mind, Santilli. Remember Pete Santilli? He was kind of
absolutely. A good friend of Jason Goodman.
I'm not surprised. Not surprised at all. And you had some reports on your website of some of these guys getting substantial monthly or weekly payments. Did you verify those as true? Do you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, DeFango, around about the time that, they were trying to recruit him to be the tip of the spear in suing Jason Goodman, and then Robert David Steele would come in behind DeFango in that defamation suit. They even went so far as to write legal papers for DeFango to just put his signature on. He received $1,500 in payments from Steele's lawyer's wife. So that's been documented in response to the subpoena in the Aaron Rich case, because of DeFango's involvement with the Shadowbox Strategies and Ed Batowski. He released supposedly all of his emails from around that time. And from some of those emails, we see these emails coming in from Robert David Steele's attorney, Stephen Biss. His wife goes by the name of Tanya, is sending all of this crazy stuff to DeFango, including payments. We also had some chat logs released between DeFango and another guy called Lestat that showed DeFango saying, "Hey, I need you to get some trolls, and we've got some new targets to attack." So basically, offering to recruit troll armies for payment. But I just wanted to come back to something you mentioned before about Jacob Wohl and Adam Green. So Adam Green from No More News, which is you could probably call that a right-wing Christian channel. It's fairly critical of a certain small country, and he became the target of a LARP from these guys. And we got the documents, basically, of DeFango, Jacob Wohl, and a lady called Mindy Robertson, planning together to do this LARP to take down Adam Green. And this was Comet Ping Pong again. Someone came in and tried to set fire to the place, who looked a little bit like Adam Green on a surveillance camera. So they said, FBI needs to be alerted. This is the Comet Ping Pong arsonist. Everyone please spread this message widely on social media. And that was a coordinated hit from multiple accounts at once, like maybe 4 accounts at least, spreading out that fake news with the sole purpose of discrediting this guy, and then trying to get him. They're constantly trying to get him deplatformed as well. And so you look at the targets of these LARPers, and it's quite often people that perhaps they're critical of the Democrats, perhaps they're a leading voice in the alt-right community, or perhaps they're critical of that certain small country over in the Middle East.
Right, and they use sock puppet accounts, but it's really classic kind of Asian provocateur type behavior, trying to goad people into or frame people. But there's just so many of them, and I've read so many stories about some of these characters on the right, the alt-right or whatever, like Laura Loomer, for example. These guys are getting paid from different wealthy individuals, something like $6,000-7,000 a month. I think there was a story about Laura Loomer, for example. So these guys, a lot of them are also getting financing. So they're paid.
If you look at Craig Sawyer, his Vets for Child Rescue is it's a registered IRS charity, so you can see the money that's going through there, and that's above $1 million, probably above $2 million by now. And how many child traffickers have been stopped? How many children were rescued from traffickers? When you dig into that, it's it's hard to reconcile the money with the activities of it. But for most of these LARPers, we really don't know. Like Laura Loomer now is running for Congress. Actually, Mindy Robertson, who I just mentioned from the trying to frame Adam Green, she was running for Congress in Nevada as well.
And I think Cernovich was on record trying to get into one of the seats in California. Actually, I mean, he wasn't.
Pals with Dershowitz and many of these other characters as well.
I mean, yeah, it's incredible when you really start seeing these connections and what's going on. You got to be very wary and careful about who you listen to, and it's a dangerous environment out there. I mean, it truly is a battle space, just like you wrote.
Yeah, and I think the latest tactic that we're seeing is trying to discredit legitimate online researchers with just over-the-top conspiracy theories. And I think that's what the Wayfair thing was. It was actually quite cleverly done, that they got some information from a legitimate database of missing children, and then they seeded Wayfair's API with those names and tied to SKU numbers that would somehow, relate back to those children, like maybe the location of where they were reported missing or something. And so when online researchers found this Wayfair thing, they're like, whoa, wait a minute, there's no way this sofa can sell for $20,000. Why does it have the name of this girl? Oh, look, what is that number there, the SKU? Oh, my goodness, that's the geographical coordinates of where that girl was abducted. They must be trafficking children, and that's the way you could buy that girl for $20,000. It just, to me, it just seemed just a little bit too kind of neat and perfect. And I think that's an example of they're trying to make people look foolish, as they did with Pizzagate, to cover up that this stuff really is going on. Right. And not only is it really going on, but it's really being exposed by online researchers. And the threads connecting to Epstein, that story just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And back when Isaac Cappy was still alive, that was his big thing, unseal Epstein. He did his whole Brackets and Jackets YouTube video rap for about 18 minutes, singing about Epstein and all the connections to Epstein. And some of the things he was talking about, I don't think were very widely known at the time at all. He talked about, in his final message, Cappy talked about the 4th of July, return of the king, return of the light. And that's when Epstein was arrested. So, did he know something? Was he taken out because he knew too much? I don't know.
Is that your opinion of Cappy? Is that he was taken out? I mean, I really haven't followed him in great detail. Yeah, look,
Isaac Cappy was a Hollywood actor. He'd had some small success, and then he came out and said, I have it on good authority that certain people are pedophiles, including my own eyewitness account, which he gave. But some people were disappointed that he never produced any evidence. And then he was found dead. His death was ruled suicide by vehicle. Supposedly jumped off a bridge in Arizona at 7:25 in the morning and then was hit by a pickup truck. But there's so many things about his death that don't add up. Cappy had in the past praised me personally as a researcher, and I was a little skeptical of him towards the end because he'd said a few times that Cappy is a psyop. But if someone tells you straight out that they're a psyop, you have to take that seriously, right? About revelation of the method. Right. That's what it looks like. But I I started following that and really looking into that a lot, and then people started sharing information with me in confidence, and it's a very, very complicated story. So many things that don't add up. One of the things that we do know that happened was that Isaac Cappy and QAnon were used to try to take down the Australian Prime Minister because one of his friends and his son, who had befriended Cappy and took him in when he visited Australia, tweeted about QAnon on Twitter. And you wouldn't think that has to be such a huge scandal, but it was basically framed as a weaponized attack in the media. And similar, if you think of what Steele did on the Alex Jones show by talking about slave children on Mars was an info bomb. This story, which is known as Mategate, where they tried to take down the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, with Isaac Cappy, with Pizzagate, with QAnon, and with the involvement of Cappy's friend Alahai. That's an amazing part of the Cappy story that I think hasn't really been completely understood by people that were just seeing him as a whistleblower about Hollywood pedophilia. It seems to me more that he was set up and used to discredit people and to attack these movements. And, maybe that in itself led to his suicide, but when someone makes a video saying, I'm definitely not suicidal, repeatedly, and then suddenly they're found dead, you do have to wonder about that.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Well, I got to commend you for doing this research into LARPing. I will have to look into Titus Frost research as well, but it's just such an important subject when you see all the tendrils and web of connections and how many people these people have following them. I think it's really important. So, and also your statement, Revelation of the Method, is number 17 in your 20 Signs of a Government LARP on your website. So I definitely suggest people go check that out on burners.me. But we're at about an hour. Steve, do you have anything you'd like to add? Anything I'd like to miss, or anything you'd like to promote as far as your research?
No, you can find me on YouTube, Crypto Beast channel. I haven't been very active this year as we've been responding to COVID down here in New Zealand, but hopefully we'll have some more stuff coming up. I'm on Twitter at Steve Outtrim, SteveOuttrim. And I think just in summary about LARPing is really this whole idea of social media influencers. And it's not just celebrities telling you to buy a new handbag. It's the characters that you're seeing who are presenting as if they're real people, and they're giving information as if it's real information, but really they're part of an operation. And even people that are there in their chat, in their comments, saying things that seem to be just genuine fans, may actually be part of the operation. If you wonder why everyone seems to like a show, but there's no negative comments, maybe those negative comments are being deleted.
Good point. Awesome. Well, Steve, great interview. So much awesome, terrific information. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to share that with the audience. So again, it's Steve Outtrim, 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 at burners.me. So people go check out that information. He has tons of information on a variety of different subjects as well, one of which I found very insightful was his research or knowledge of Jan Irvin and Joe Rogan, the beginnings of Joe Rogan. Pretty fascinating as well. So, Steve, thank you so much.